Welcome back, Wolfpack Verlis here, and I didn't want to make a video on this, but it's been so damn ridiculous that for those of you who haven't known, there's too much water in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. That IGN, that's the IGN score for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, a 7.8. Like, with all the hype, with all the shenanigans, this is one of the lower scoring Pokemon games we've ever seen, and it looks like it's going to be one of the best Pokemon games ever. And it's not because there's like faults in the game, necessarily. That if we look at the positives, it says gorgeous details, excellent post-game content, some smart updates. Reading the review, you know, the review has a lot of nostalgic factors on the original Ruby and Sapphire, and there's a lot of other things going on with the game that make it pretty solid. The reason why it gets a 7.8, or at least the only discernible reason why, is because the game literally has too much water. That the reviewer did not like it, that there's HMs, that there's more than 5 HMs, that we have to have secret power as something that you have to use if you want to have a secret base, and that Ruby and Sapphire, pretty much the most water-filled game map in Pokemon, which has a huge amount of its story based around the water, it's a 7.8 because of too much water. Like, it's so stupidly painful to me to read this review and then see a 7.8 when Ruby and Sapphire got reviewed by IGN. When the original games got reviewed by IGN, it got a 9.5. And when we're looking at all the updates this game is getting, it should at least be a 9. And I'm not even saying that as a Pokemon fan, that if IGN is going to want to do this fairly, that it has the same game features, but because it has the same game features, it's a 7.8, but everything's so much better. That we have much better hardware, we have 3D, more beautiful scenery, we're going to have more post-game content, we're going to have more content in the game than ever. There's actually a point up here where it talks a lot more about the Dex Nav, which is actually really cool because we get a sneak peek here. That, for those of you who didn't notice, we have Dex Nav will alert you to things like the Pokemon's level and ability and rare moves. I've mentioned rare moves before, but apparently rare moves are egg moves. We're going to be able to have access to egg moves before without even egg breeding, which is actually really awesome. So that's pretty cool. Kind of interesting that Pokemon are messing around the wild to get egg moves, but we'll let that one slide because free egg moves is pretty awesome. But then the rest of this, the whole thing, like, too much water in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. If you guys have the chance, go onto Twitter and look at Too Much Water. There's a lot of hilarious things going on because, you know, give my shower 7.8, too much water. Yeah, like, it seems like really the only reason is too much water and too many HMs. And it just doesn't justify a 7.8 because everything else in the gameplay gets really good reviews on the rest of the article, and people are just ripping this apart. But yeah, too much water, and I think it's kind of really sucky because of the way that the game breaks down and how Pokemon gets treated in the past. That Pokemon has been this thing that whenever there's a new Pokemon game, it generally gets bad reviews for being too much like the older Pokemon game. But that's kind of the point, that Pokemon, you expect, like, a new Pokemon game is going to be the same thing with new features, and that's what makes it great, and that's what makes the big fans coming back. But it seems like if you're not a direct fan of Pokemon, you're going to give the game a bad review for being too samey, when that's just completely missing the point of a Pokemon game. With this, it's a better version of the game that got a 9.5, but because it didn't change what the editor didn't like, it scores terribly. Like, I would consider 7.8 almost terrible. That if we're going on a scale of 1 to 10, that's a C. This game gets a C. I would never give Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire a C rating unless there were terrible flaws with it, and it looks like the rest of the internet believes this too. So I didn't want to have to put in my own point, but for those of you who didn't know that this was going on, it's hilarious. Like, go read the article. It's a decent article until you get to that point, and then you can go on Twitter and we can all have a good laugh about Too Much Watergate. But I mean, I just want to get my 2 cents in there because I find it just ridiculous that Pokemon games get these bad raps in a lot of reviews. That I used to have Game Informer, you know, Diamond Pearl came out, Black and White came out, and all these other things, and like the reviews were always dropping like by 0.5 points or something when we got the review, and it's like, oh, it's just the same old Pokemon game with new Pokemon, bad review, even though it would be like one of the more revolutionary Pokemon games in the series. So that's always something that has just kind of confused me. But too much water. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and with all this water, I'm still salty.